Good morning, everybody, and welcome to just gone 11 o'clock. You know, when you're trying to do those 40,000 jobs and it's like, it's 11. It's time for a cuppa. So welcome. Today's career Puccino for postdocs is going to be all about, should I do another postdoc or not? So the eternal question. And it's one that I get asked a lot by postdocs. All these career Puccinos come from questions that I'm repeatedly asked by postdocs. But it is one of these questions that's, how long is a piece of string? So the answer could be yes, it could be no, it could be maybe, but we're going to try and explore some of the reasons why another postdoc would be great or another postdoc would be a disaster. So let's dive in, shall we? Oh, there we go. The first thing that I want to say is, please don't leave making that postdoc decision to any chances. What I want from postdocs is to be able to proactively choose, or want for postdocs is to be able to proactively choose that next step. I mean, you're all so fantastically talented. You've got so many skills coming out of your, kind of top of your head. You're so talented that one of the things is that you shouldn't get to very near the end of your contract and think, I've got to take whatever is on offer. So this is pretty much rolling the dice. And it's like, okay, I've not thought about my career until, a month before my contract's up. And then you've got Hobson's choice. You have to go with what is available. Whereas if you look, always be looking at the next step. So even if you've just joined Planet Postdoc, then I would encourage you to join, to look at websites, so jobs.ac.uk or somewhere similar, just to see what's out there, to familiarise yourself. Even if you've got a 5-year contract, whatever your contract is fixed term, and that really, really does need to focus the mind on. The clock is always ticking. Sometimes it's ticking much louder than others, but even if everything goes to plan, so you see a nice job, you get interviewed, they then offer you the job, you can then resign from where you are. From A to B, I would say an absolute minimum is 4 months, and sort of reports from the field seem to be indicating that the recruitment process is just slower at the moment. Now, whether that is because people are still working from home or people are deliberating recruiting, but things seem to have taken a bit longer at the moment. So really, if you're 6 months or less to the end of your contract, that clock, it should be ticking really loudly. You need to look at all your opportunities rather than just, kind of, right, here's a postdoc, I'm going to take it. So that's my first thing, is be proactive, because you absolutely should have lots of options given how talented you all are. The next thing to consider is, okay, you're faced with, shall I do a postdoc or shall I do something else? And that something else might be an academic route, so it might be a fellowship, or it might be a non-academic route, so moving out of sort of the research career ladder, for want of a better word. When it comes to choosing whether to do another postdoc or not, you've really got to think, okay, am I going to be an academic? Am I going to go down that route? So I'm assuming that you've got one postdoc under your belt and you're looking at that next decision. If you look at your boss, your principal investigator, and you think that life is not for me, I would absolutely not do it, then I'm really going to push back to you and say, well, why would you take another postdoc? Because the postdocs are a route into that academic career. Are you just putting off the inevitable by taking that postdoc on? Are you avoiding making decisions about where else you can go? If you're going to take on another postdoc for those reasons, it's not great reasons to take it on. You've got to make that leap at some point if you're not going down that academic trajectory. If you are going down that academic trajectory, then I would say, right, what does this particular postdoc help me achieve? Does it add to my CV? If it is more of the same, so same skills, same amount of teaching or supervision, same amount of public exposure, same sort of publications, all those sorts of things. If it's more of the same, it's not adding a huge amount to your CV. The only reason that perhaps if it was more of the same, that you might want to take that on is that if you have a really good chance of racking up those publications for that next postdoc. So if you've got one postdoc under your belt and you're looking at another one, first question, do you want to be an academic? That's a yes, no, or perhaps a maybe. If it's a yes and a maybe, another postdoc probably makes sense. Let's go and have a look. Can I find a postdoc that adds to my CV, that isn't more of the same, that gives me something different, that makes me more attractive to either a fellowship panel or a lectureship panel? Because those are your next steps, really. If you're looking at this and thinking, I don't want to be an academic, then I would say that there are probably easier routes to paying the rent, finding purpose in life than perhaps taking on a postdoc. At some point, if you know that you don't want to be an academic, you've got to decide what else you want to do. So why not, instead of taking that postdoc, take another job in pretty much the same way. So a postdoc might offer you a couple of years employment. Another job might offer you another couple of years employment that might give you skills that then help you move towards your ideal career or allow you to explore a career. There is no such thing as a career set in stone. There are no more jobs for life. So if you decide to go down a different route, it's not the end of the world if you decide, actually, this isn't for me. So providing you've learned something along the way, I very much think that, kind of we're into, there's a great book called Squiggly Careers, and we're very much into that squiggly career mode. Even if we stay in academia, we might do a bit of entrepreneurship on the side, along with our academic day job. There's no such thing as a job for life, and there tend to be those portfolio careers, and whether those are one after the other or parallel tracks. The world of careers is changing. So in the answer to should I do another postdoc or not, if you're thinking, yes, academia is still my goal, then probably yes, or maybe, because you might be able to apply for a fellowship as well. If you're thinking academia is not for me, then I would encourage you to go and look at other jobs and just not put off the inevitable. We've got two scenarios then. If we've decided on Planet Postdoc, is either we can stay where we are, which I've called home sweet home. It might not be, or we have to go somewhere else. Those are, very obviously two choices. Slurp of coffee time. If you are staying put, you have to have some pretty good reasons as to why you're staying put. If your next step is a fellowship, they are going to be looking at independence. And if you've stayed in the same place, I've seen some people who've stayed in the same place since undergraduate, and then they did their project in that lab. They then did a master's project in that lab. They then went on to a PhD and they've stayed as a postdoc. It's really hard to prove your independence if you've stayed under that particular principal investigator's umbrella. The other thing about staying put is that it's kind of a cozy blanket. We know the rules. We know what's bad about it. We know what's good about it. But to some extent, it's easy. It's more of the same. We don't have to change. But staying put really does, I think, limit your career to some extent. Unless you have a really good reason, like, okay, in the next 6 months, the 3 Nature papers are going to drop out of the work if I stay. I would say that is pretty compelling reason to stay. But quite often I see postdocs who are staying for that next postdoc because their PI has a little bit more money and sort of almost dangling the papers in front of them like a carrot. But the stick to go with that carrot is that the money might only be for 6 months, a year. You might be finishing someone else's project. So that soft, squidgy money trap is very real if you stay put. If you're staying put and you are actually going on to a new proper contract, so 2 years, 3 years, again thinking, am I going to be able to add to my CV, add to my skill set, or am I going to become effectively indispensable in the lab? Am I going to become like a super lab manager or lab technician? So one of the caveats that I would say about staying put for more than one postdoc is that you do become indispensable. You're all fantastic people and you become indispensable to that particular principal investigator. And with indispensability comes great responsibility, to misquote Spider-Man completely, in that you get lots of jobs. You know, you'll get the students to look after, you'll get them to teach. You have to teach them techniques. You've probably got all the ordering and the consumables and the COSH forms and all that other baggage. And suddenly you look around and you go, I'm doing all this work. I'm not, I'm working hard, but I'm not hitting the metrics that get me out into that next step, like publications. So if you want to stay put, there are some real questions that you need to ask yourself. Am I going to be able to do independent work so that I can move on? Am I really adding to my CV? Can I extend what I'm doing now? What are my chances of publications if I stay here? And can I avoid that becoming indispensable trap and still stick to churning out the papers, perhaps working on grants, etc.? So if you've decided on Planet Postdoc, think very carefully about staying put. I know that the alternative is fraught with change, but for me, I think another postdoc somewhere else does add a little bit more. So let's have a look at that. So I can remember my early research life as pretty much being surrounded by boxes and moving from one house to another, as a student and then as an early career researcher and then as a postdoc. It seemed to be that we were constantly surrounded by boxes because we were on fixed term contracts. Moving to go somewhere else for a postdoc, if you've decided that's a good plan, then actually you've got a lot more choice because there are postdocs everywhere. But my caveat here, it's full of caveats this morning, but my caveat here is don't be don't limit yourself to, right, I can only stay in London or I can only stay in Edinburgh or Scotland or wherever you might be. Is thinking actually you can move, everyone can always move. It might be difficult to move is different. to I can't move. And so thinking about choosing to go somewhere else, don't put limiters on your decisions. Have a look what's out there. That ideal postdoc might be somewhere where you don't want to fence off your options. Other things about moving lab is finding out why that position is vacant. So is there new money? Because if you stay put, you know the answers to these. Is there new money? Are you filling in someone else's project because they left? What is the principal investigator like? So this is where you need to tap in your network and find out someone who's worked there before and see what that principal investigator is like to work with, because that is a real formative, a really important relationship. So you need to have the lowdown on that. And then you've still got the questions of, does this add to my skill set? So there is no point moving halfway across the country if it doesn't add to your skill set, or it doesn't give you something else that, kind of is the ability to really, really publish lots and lots or something like that. So moving, I think, is attractive career-wise, but you need to make sure that you're not limiting yourself in other ways, and you're not getting from that, what's the phrase, from the frying pan into the fire. Hard to say on the morning, but that you're not making your situation worse. So you need to get the lowdown on that. You need to find out what the university's like. Some universities are fantastic at supporting their postdocs, and others are just, there isn't much there for them. Largely that is tallied to how many postdocs they have. So if you're going to be one of 200, 300 postdocs, that is quite a different proposition to perhaps joining a massive research university that might have thousands of postdocs and therefore can provide for that postdoc body. So some things to think about there. So quick whistle-stop tour about whether you should take that next postdoc or not. Happy to take any questions. I've got my chat or the Q&A up if you do have any questions. But my one thing would be, make it a proactive choice. Don't drift into the next postdoc, because that way, my experience tells me that people are less happy and more desperate to move by the end of that second postdoc if they've just drifted in. If they've made an active career decision to do another postdoc, good luck to you. If you've made an active career decision to not do another postdoc and move on out, then that is equally a valid choice. But it does need to be a proactive choice. Thank you very much. I'll wait just in case anyone has any questions. Next week's webinar, Career Puccino, is about moving into the world of finance. So if you know anyone who would find that particularly useful, then do let them know and drop them an email on my behalf. That would be amazing, or just point them in my direction. Otherwise, I don't think we have any questions this morning, and it's 20 past. So I'm going to go and finish my lovely latte this morning and get on with those 40,000 jobs. But thank you very much for being here. Thanks, Christina. And I will see you next week, hopefully. And don't forget to tell your buddies, the ones that are thinking of finance. It's going to be a really helpful session for them. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.